and welcome to the Service Operations Podcast. I am your host, 𝗖𝗵𝗶𝗀𝗀𝗍. Our guests are from different industries and functions. They will share their experience, strategies, and the changing landscape to help you take the service operations of your business to the next level. Hi �devashish, welcome to the Service Operations Podcast. I look forward to an interesting conversation with you. Let's take this forward. So tell us what you've been doing, recently.
Thank you, 𝗖𝗵𝗶𝗀𝗀𝗍, for having me on your show. It's wonderful being part of this effort. So I think, when you spoke to me about it, I think 1.5, 2 months back, my memories went back to ICICI Bank. So you know what? A lot of water has flown under the bridge since, we left ICICI Bank. So just to walk you through my career journey. After ICICI, of course, I worked for Standard Chartered Bank, and I was actually leading their global efforts in, re-engineering, customer centricity. That's what I did. Over the last, I think now it's going to be almost 6.5, 7 years. I actually have a small little firm. We work in the space of customer centricity, operational transformation, operational excellence, and also, workplace effectiveness. So that's what I've been doing for my living. I've been lucky. I've had the opportunity to work not only in India, but Middle East, especially Dubai, Africa, and also China. So it's been a good journey. So that's about myself, 𝗖𝗵𝗶𝗀𝗀𝗍. Yeah.
Wow, sounds great. So I was picking up words from what you're saying, and these discussions we've had, enough number of times. So every leader, I don't know of any leader who doesn't, talks about customer centricity. And, it's like kind of a thing that they must talk about. Most of us know that there's like huge amount of work to be done in that area. So why is it that they speak about it, but it doesn't always happen on the ground?
No, I think that's a very good question. And there are a couple of reasons why, it's that way. I think first thing first, what we need to understand, the reason why leaders, often talk about customers, and especially in public platforms, in town halls, etc., because that's the right thing to do, right? Because finally, all businesses exist for the sake of customer. But when it comes to really getting down to brass tacks and, delivering or making their teams work in that direction, it doesn't really happen. So why doesn't it happen? There are a couple of things that I've seen. First thing first, I think many leaders, and I don't want to generalize it, but it's a fact, that don't really understand what's the meaning of the word customer centricity. Customer centricity is not customer service. Customer centricity is not customer experience. So when I'm talking about customer centricity essentially means focusing on a set of customers and creating value for them and for their own organization. So when I'm talking about customer centricity, it has to be treated as a business strategy. So what often happens in many businesses, this is not done. So that is one of the reasons why you see, business leaders not really putting their mind into it. That's point number one. Point number two, what I've seen that there are many priorities, which typically a CEO has to juggle. And unfortunately, while customer should be at the top, he's somewhere lost in that, many of those balls that he's juggling, and it never gets discussed. So that's the second reason. The third reason, my read is that there are occasions, or there are many times, CEOs want to do it. They want to do it, they have the intention, but they don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And when they embark on doing it, they don't get it right. And then they say this is something that is all talk, right? So that is the third reason. The fourth reason, and this is a perennial struggle with efforts in customer centricity, is, and customer service, customer experience, they are all, subsets of customer centricity. It often becomes very difficult to link the efforts with business value. What I mean is that the efforts that you do, how do you really connect with the top line of the organization? I mean, the business metrics. So till you don't establish the cause and effect, many senior leaders look at it with a lot of apprehension. So that is the fourth reason. The fifth reason, I think it's pure ignorance. Generally, all CEOs want their business to be successful. Maybe they need to know more. They need to really understand if they love their customer, their organization is going to get better. One thing that what business leaders often don't get it right is that, they focus on making their business big.
Yeah.
But instead of that, if they focus on loving their customer, automatically their business would become bigger. So I think, these are some of the thoughts which come to my mind.
Yeah.
Why I believe many senior leaders don't give the requisite time, in this domain, certainly.
Yeah. So now, these words are used interchangeably. So there is a customer service, customer experience. I mean, it's all there. So yeah, you're right. In a way, it is basically keeping the customer at the center and running a profitable business. What we hear and what we see is this customer service is that, soft, feely kind of a thing. Whereas actually, when you look at it and when you operationalize it, as you said, it requires like a whole host of skills and qualities. It's like running a business. And it's also said that service starts from the top. Okay. But where do you think this doesn't go right? It's basically why the entire leadership team doesn't talk the same things, because someone who's in another function will start operating in a different way. And you find that everyone is pulling, initiatives in different directions.
No, I think it's very simple. The reason is very simple. If the CEO doesn't put his mind behind this effort, it's not going to be successful. If you look at all global organizations which have made a name for themselves in the space of customer experience, customer centricity, it's directly driven by the CEO, right? Driven by the CEO doesn't mean the CEO,
keeps talking.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't mean that he does the nuts and bolts, but not at all. He gives the required emphasis to make this happen. So I think that's the first thing. And once that happens, then the entire organization falls in line. Yeah. And that's where, it's extremely important because the CEO finally cannot really do this, isn't it, Satinder? So you need to hire a sort of a chief customer officer, or you can call it a chief experience officer, who's a part of the top management reporting to him, right? And this is the person who's going to align the organization, work with the CEO and entire top management to galvanize the entire enterprise in a direction so that it becomes customer centric. Yeah. So that's how, you'll have to go about beginning the journey, Satinder.
Yeah. And it's a long journey. It is not something that gets done over a period, say 3 months, 6 months. It's not. No. I think it's an evolving and a long journey. You would have, of course, worked with more companies outside. It's at least a 3 to 5 year journey. I think that really turns the, organization around. And another important thing is, while we were talking about this CEO, see, it has got to do with the questions the CEO asks and asks the right person. I noticed that wherever that goes right, customer service, the entire customer, I could call it service operations, goes right. because it is asking the right question and asking the right person. Quite often it happens that they don't get the right information.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you are right. Typically, if you're really embarking on a transformation like this, and of course, it depends on the size of the organization, it can be anywhere from 3 to 5 years. Because as you rightly mentioned earlier, it's just not the hard stuff, but lots of soft stuff which come together to make this possible. It's often the soft stuff, which often is the hardest stuff to really accomplish. So the hard stuff and the soft stuff, both of them have to come together to make this journey possible and successful. And you know what? In the initial days, you have to run it as a transformation. And what that means that you need to have that sort of sense of urgency to make it happen. Once the broad pillars, as I call it, of customer centricity are in the organization, and probably if this takes 3 to 5 years, then, after that, you'll see things starting to getting embedded within the part of the organizational fabric. So it's a journey without an end. But the groundwork needs to happen in the first 3 to 5 years, as you rightly mentioned, Satendra.
The way people should be and the way they should think. And there's a lot of focus on the people, training the people. But personally, I might sound different. I am a believer of process. So what I feel is that if the process is set right and the more strong the process is, it's the easier it is for the people to deliver what they have to deliver wherever. So, I think the focus on process, and when I'm saying this, I'm also talking about a small, simple thing, but which is very important, is this whole practice of root cause analysis. It sounds simple, but unless everything is questioned and unless that it becomes a part of the bloodstream, I don't know what people can deliver.
Very true. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so actually, you need both people and process to make this successful. And, if I were to just inventorize the broad levers for a journey like this, that would comprise, I think, first thing first, leadership. I think that's point number one. Second, I think very, very important, a strategic direction around this. And we can talk about it, what I mean. The third is ways of working, very, very important. That's where, you talk about behaviors of the people. Then very, very important, metrics. You need to install metrics that matter. Then again, is customer journey. You need to really understand, demystify, unfurl the most important customer journeys of the organization. Then the bit, which is very close to your heart, is operational excellence, wherein you have the entire process piece. And you also have technology in this.
Actually, I want coming to that. What is the role of technology?
Correct. So the way I look at it, within this operational excellence bit, you have process and technology. Technology has always to be the enabler for process improvement. And since we are talking about technology, I'll cover one more thing a little later. Then the other thing that you need to have is very solid governance. How are things being managed? Then very, very important, employee journeys. Because finally, it's the employees who are they are interacting with the customer. Right? So you have the customer journeys, then you have the employee journeys. And last but not the least, very, very important, the culture. Essentially, what do you do with the context so that, it has the right mindsets, it has the right skill sets, and you have a suitable culture which really nurtures the journey of customer centricity. So this is like a jigsaw, as I said. You have the hard stuff and you have the soft stuff. And it's often the soft stuff which is much harder to crack. You can always improve a process. It's easy. But how do you really change mindsets? That's difficult. How do you change the context? That's difficult. So that's where it is, Satinder. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're talking about strategizing. So you would like to, go a little deeper into that.
No, I think a couple of things. I think first of all, very, very important. If you really want to make this successful, it should be a part of your business strategy. I think that's point number one.
So the customer strategy is not separate from the business. It's a part of the business strategy.
Absolutely. It's one of the enablers for your business. Right? It's an integral part of your business strategy. That's point number one. Point number two, very, very important. You need to clearly define well-established outcome metrics. Outcome metrics. And by outcome metrics, I mean the top line metrics. It could be your revenues, it could be your volumes, right? So you are able to establish your efforts in customer centricity. How does it link with the outcome metric? As I mentioned earlier, that's the second point. The third thing, very, very important, you need to have a solid roadmap. If you don't have a roadmap, which is 3 to 5 years, you'll never get this right. So, I always tell my clients that, if you're really not serious to have a roadmap in place, which has a fairly long horizon, maybe 3 to 5 years, there's no use embarking on this journey.
Then it's just a transition, it's just a workshop and then
exactly. Without that, you will not really see value for yourself. So if you want to do it for your organization, please have a roadmap. 3 to 5 years. Of course, it can be 2 to 4 years if your organization is small. Of course, it depends on the organization size, but it needs to have a roadmap which has been created by the entire leadership team. Co-created, very, very important. Even the finance guy has contributed. The supply chain guy has contributed. The technology guy has contributed. The manufacturing guy has contributed. The guy from risk, if it's banking, has contributed. Everybody has contributed in putting this together. And then, of course, the CEO is a part of this discussion. So once you have a roadmap like this, and it's blessed by the CEO, I think it just needs to be driven with a solid governance framework, Satinder.
So can you give us, of course, you need not tell us the name, but can you give us some example of, a project that you would have undertaken and, which turned around this entire customer centricity journey?
Yeah, there are quite a few. I think the examples are quite similar to what I said. So, there was one of this case, a very, very successful company, wherein, they were really growing in revenues, and they had this, very ambitious aspiration to really grow manifold. And as a part of that strategy, of course, I was brought on board. So we came up with a couple of levers which will help them to reach from X to Y. X to Y. And customer centricity was one of them. And there were, of course, other strategies, things around, say, supply chain optimization. Which included things like procurement, the things around manufacturing. Then there were things around sales force effectiveness. So they had come up with 5 or 6 big level strategies. And customer centricity was one of them. So this organization, went through a journey, and they saw drastic results, not only in terms of revenue. Of course, they were market leaders and they continue to be market leaders. What was also very interesting to see is that, of course, the typical customer experience metrics did see the needle moving positively. What they also found that they had some of these disgruntled customers. And this business was in B2B space. B2B space. they came on board. So that was one of the outcome. The other thing that was very nice to see was that the entire effort brought the entire leadership together and made them focus in one direction.
That's very important.
That's the second thing. The third thing, which was very interesting to see, because of this effort, they also saw their employee engagement score going up. Because finally, when you do it holistically, it impacts everything.
And you're helping. It's all helping, because see, eventually, it's even to talk to managers. One of the things that they always say is that no one listens to us. So basically, it's this guy who's holding fort, who's trying to put the best of the company to the outside world, but he's not able to get things done from the back end. Either the sales won't support him, or maybe operations won't support him. And then when everybody really supports, and then the objective is common, I'm sure it even logically, when you think, it should help.
Exactly. And when you have a business strategy like what we also saw, and this is where all these process improvement methodologies came in, like lean, etc., to optimize their supply chain and manufacturing processes. The lead times came shrinking, they just came down. So, there were a lot of knock-on effects. So overall, the outcomes were very, very positive. So this is just one example, Satinder, for you.
So that's, putting a company on the road to customer centricity. But now just tell me, with, this artificial intelligence, so we were talking about this people part, people who deliver. But now we have, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and lots of chatbots. We as consumers also sometimes wonder, why is this bot not giving me the right answer? I know it's only about customer delivery, but what's the direction this will take?
No, I think first thing, digital solutions are an integral part of our lives. I think we can't avoid it. Even if we dislike it, let's see what happened during the pandemic. Many people who are not digitally savvy were forced to, adopt things like internet banking, doing things over net, ordering food, etc. So, like it or not, it's an integral part of our life. Now, coming back to customer experience, customer centricity, I think it's going to be there. But before we do that, I think organizations need to decide the business that they are in. Do they want to provide a high-tech or a high-touch service? That's very, very important. I think instead of just jumping into adopting digital solutions, organizations should step back and think, does my customer need high-tech or high-touch service, or a hybrid? Or a mix of both, right? Or it could even be high-show service. In certain things, in certain businesses, it can also be high-show. High-show could be things like, if I'm running a theme park, like Disney, for example. That's a very critical element. Now, coming back to your question, once we decide, should it be high tech or high touch, then we should adopt the right digital solution. That's to be remembered. Now, what's really happening today, because of very enthusiastic vendors, software solutions, bots, etc., are being sold with lots of promises to customers. And finally, who's getting impacted? The customer. Because organizations go ahead and implement those solutions, and customers don't really get the desired benefit. I think it's very important for organizations to decide where a digital solution will work, where it will not. Where digital solution will work, what sort of digital solution should be applied? For example, you talked about bots. If I'm talking about bots are good for repetitive queries. Right. But today what happens, I've seen many businesses, even for difficult problems, there's a bot which tries to solve it.
Yeah.
It shouldn't happen that way, right? Ideally, if the bot doesn't solve it, it should get escalated to a human being.
Exactly. So when you said repeat a simple problem for which you don't find a solution as a consumer, even if you're asking the question for the fifth time, the intelligence does not pick up that there is a problem. Why would someone ask the same question for the fifth time? Means the answer is not going. That's one. And the second piece is that there's so much overuse, is how I think, that you don't find a place where you can reach out to the company. And the sad part is that in service-based industries, if that is to happen, it's a real problem for the consumer, because I don't know where to go. Everything is standardized, but what if I want something which is not standard? There are certain things which will always remain non-standard. You'll never have 100% standardization. An example is, when you apply for a visa, it's you don't do it every day as an individual, and everyone doesn't do it, right? So it just happens sometimes, but you need some specific documents. Sometimes you feel it's impossible to get them, because of the standardization. I think what you're saying is that there has to be some space or some leeway for a customer to come out and, have someone to deal, maybe a human or whatever, to deal and solve that particular problem.
Absolutely. I think wherever the bot struggles, and the bot senses this is not of repetitive nature, it should get escalated to a human being. The human being comes in and solves a problem. There's one more very important point that we need to remember. I think before we apply any digital solution or digitization, especially for customer centricity, I think the organization needs to decide what is customer experience for them. If you have not defined what is customer experience, and go ahead and
push things down,
and adopt digital solution, it's not going to work. As Steve Jobs said, first define the customer experience and then adopt the digital solution. Of course, that may not be the exact word, but that's the essence. So I think once we do this, then, hopefully we will get things right. But let me tell you, when you talk about AI, ML, etc., there's a lot of benefit nowadays. Nowadays, you can actually sense your customers real time. You don't really need to sense their mood after a month or after a year. It can really be sensed real time, right? For example, if you monitor social media, etc., by quick sentiment analysis, that Satinder is upset. You can do something about it. There can be a quick service recovery. So I think technology has huge application. The only thing that it needs to be applied intelligently. If done well, it'll only help to leapfrog the journey in providing a better experience and make the organization customer centric.
So one is good experience for the customer, and one is to make provision for when things go wrong. That's the time when one really requires this kind of stuff. So the future is digital, of course, and rightly so. We all have got the benefits of going digital. The other thing which I just read recently was about the customers learning. And when the customers learning, just like, you want to provide training to your employees in the company when you change something, similarly, that kind of support must be given to the customer, because he is now going to use your products in different ways. So I think there is this whole bit of basics that need to really be right in terms of communicating in simple ways. The fundamentals of customer handling and customer experience, I think they need to stay in place. And then the rest is, of course, going to be great going forward.
One thing that if I can just add to what you said, you brought out a very important point that, customers need learning. Right. But you know what? Companies have to step back. I think today customers don't have time for getting trained.
Yeah.
I think companies have to really go to the design stage. They need to design products so effortless that even an idiot can,
That
it's
is
idiot
true.
code. Anybody,
Yeah.
I mean, let's
Yeah.
look at our iPhone. Anybody can use it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need any training. So actually, forward-looking companies, what do? They actually go to the design stage, design their product so well that it's so effortless, and the word is effortless, so that the customer doesn't need any training.
True.
I mean, today, even if you see a kid of 3-4 years can play with the iPad.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the power, and that's where we have to move.
Yeah.
I mean, this training customer does not have time today.
No,
I mean, as it is, people have very little attention span today.
Yeah.
Gone are the days, right? So
Yeah. So it's not training in that sense, but the point is that the customer is learning new things. When you're in an uncertain space, you need something. You need to make sure that you are giving good communication,
and hand-holding also.
Yeah.
Absolutely, hand-holding. I completely agree. Where it's required, at least.
Great conversation so far. Now, Debashish, tell us a little about what are you writing now?
At this moment, Satyendra, I'm not writing anything. Was just fortunate to have published 2 books. I'm taking over the last 6-7 months. So at this moment, I'm just doing, not writing, just busy with my work. So at this moment, not writing.
So how many books have you written so far?
Quite a few. Maybe I can share about the last 2. There was one book that I'd written last year, which got published last year. I didn't write it last year. It's called the Little Big Things in Operational Excellence. The book essentially focuses on, the softer things which are required to make your operations better. Leaders don't talk about it. We talk about process, we talk about technology. So that book is on that. And there's another one that got published recently in the UK. It's called Behavioral Science for Quality and Continuous Improvement, 25 Lessons from Behavioral Economics and Psychology. So it is essentially the application of behavioral science and psychology in improvements. I think that these are the last 2 books. But at this moment, I'm not writing anything. Thank you for asking.
No, so you've been writing. When did you publish your first book? How many years back?
Quite some time.
I think 15 years ago?
Yeah, more than that, yeah.
So you've come a long way, That's nice.
No, thank you so much for having me. I think the service operations podcast is very relevant. I've really not found any other podcast on this topic. My message to the viewers is, please watch it. I think I've had the opportunity to watch some of them. They're full of insights because, there are so many leaders who are coming with varying perspective.
Yeah.
So as a practitioner, I think it's always good to listen to all of them, and maybe you may not digest all of them. And even if you digest all of them, you'll finally assimilate few of them.
Yeah, even if you are able to implement one. I think,
exactly.
It can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it can.
Thank you for having me, Satyendra.
Thank you, Debashish, for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.